The y-intercept and the concavity.
So I'm just saying it wouldn't be a bad idea for standard form. Take a highlighter, highlight the A and highlight the C, and also make sure that you have written down that the C tells you the y value of the y-intercept. Because a lot of people were missing that as I was walking around, and it really messed up how you were identifying the graphs.
I remember back in elementary school, man, everybody wanted to I knew that I meant y-intercept.
No, you did.
It's just, he had just said vertex.
All good, all good. Okay, so for standard form, let's see, what can we do this way? What, can somebody tell me what 3 letters based off of the graph picture that they put on standard form?
F, B, H.
A, C,
D.
H.
Okay, so I was looking
You
at
said the equations.
look at the, okay, yeah, so we're looking at the letter of the graph.
Oh, BHF. No, A.
Graph.
The
Oh,
graph,
ACD.
sorry guys, I know the letters are really confusing.
I went in order.
I'm in his step order. Mine is
She
CAD.
said graph.
The graph. Okay,
But A
so
come first.
with
I
these,
know.
did anybody have any specific problems between these 3?
No, ma'am, I ain't have
Hold on,
no
what's
problem.
that?
Which one?
What's
Which
that?
one is that?
What's that, plus, little b?
Okay, so the pi, so this is an equation, it's still written in standard form, it's just pi is our b in that equation, and it doesn't change, like, things you can tell from the graph.
I knew it was.
Okay, factored form. Guys, when you're looking at factored form, what does that tell you?
You have 2x.
In fact, yeah.
2x intercepts. Okay, what do I need to remember about those x-intercepts?
They both.
They never change, and the y is always 0.
Right, so if I have an x-intercept, my y value is 0. So let's look at, so in this one, if I looked at, I should be able to look at this equation and my y-intercepts are, I'm sorry, my x-intercepts are going to be what?
Negative 5 and negative 1.
Okay, -5 and -1. So whenever you're looking at the graph, you would have been looking for something that crosses the x-axis at those points. Remember, the other thing, so this one and this one were very similar, and I did see a lot of people mixing up these equations with their graphs because the only thing different about them is what?
Yeah,
Right, the positives and the negatives. So you have to know that if this says x plus 1, then my intercept is going to be a -1, 0 and a -5, 0. It's going to be the opposite of, like, I guess what you would maybe think. And then, okay, does anyone have any questions about anything for factored form?
No. I had a little trouble with vertex though.
Had a little trouble with vertex? Okay, we're getting there next. So on this one, factored form, you could highlight, or I mean, I guess everything about it tells us what we need to know. But just make sure you have written in the
Boxes.
yeah, make sure you have written in the boxes the concavity and then what we talked about for the x-intercepts.
What's the concavity? It's tell you.
What's the concavity?
A.
And what does A tell us?
Negative is down, it's positive.
Okay, does A change between the different forms of the
They
equations?
do not.
Right, so A is the same for each form of the quadratic equation. Okay, and then the last thing we had is vertex form. When I look at the vertex form of a quadratic equation, what features can I identify?
The vertex and K.
Okay, the vertex is H and K. Okay, something I need y'all to remember is the vertex is a point. So it always has to be written as an ordered pair when you're identifying it. Okay, what else does vertex form tell us?
If it, yeah.
Yeah, axis, yeah, concavity and also the axis of symmetry. What do I know what the axis of symmetry is?
X will equal H and
X is equal to H.
of vertex and then Y, the equation.
Okay.
Right, same thing here, kind of like how we had our zeros are the opposite, is the same here, is our H is the opposite. So when you glued them on your graphic organizers, everybody had these, I, H, and G, talking about those are the pictures of the graphs. Something I do want to point out is remember how we talked about the negative in front of the parentheses? It's like multiplying by a -1, so it's still going to be concave down. And then, so what would the vertex of this equation be?
-4 and -2.
-4 and -2, and how do you know that?
Because when they're in the parentheses in thing. So in the parentheses,
Stop glitching.
in the parentheses, they flip.
They flip. Does everybody understand why the vertex of this is -4 and -2? Okay, so what would the vertex of this one be?
Which one is that?
-2. I do, what is it?
-2
Would be -2, -4.
Right,
Yeah.
-2, -4 is the vertex.
You glitched too?
I was not.
What would the axis of symmetry be for this one?
X. No, -1.
-1.
Okay, so the axis of symmetry, that's, it's technically the equation of a line. So we need to say x equals, x equals -2.
Oh,
Does that
okay.
make
Yeah, now
sense?
you get it.
Because remember, it's a line that goes straight through the middle, so all the y values there would be, what for that line?
Positive, negative.
Which one?
So for the line x equals -2, it's a straight line going through everywhere x equals -2, but y,
No, it's on the y-axis.
Yeah.
I'm going horizontal. X equals -2.
this horizontal would be a y equals.
You mean vertical?
Wait, what?
So if it's x equals, so this is what we're saying, so x,
Oh, x equals, okay, that's
so
vertical.
x equals, so this is the point where everywhere down here, my x value is -2, and then just y is just whatever it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
You
okay.
know.
Cause I thought,
So this is the axis of symmetry, so we're saying it's x equals -2. Well, at each point on this line, the x value is -2. It's just a vertical line. But just make sure also y equals is the horizontal line. Does anybody have any questions for these?
You have answered all of mine.
Okay, so we're gonna I'm gonna go ahead and introduce to y'all what we'll pick up with tomorrow. So go ahead and
I was like, we can start it today.
okay.
We still have 8 minutes.
So go ahead and flip to it's like tile 4.2 in your textbook. It should be right after the not exactly sure.
It's gonna be trying to.
It's gonna be
Why'd you get so
page M157.
No more. I was like, you better put that in your notebook. Hey guys, don't just shove those papers into your backpack. Make sure you put them in your notebook.
Pull your pants up. I'm talking to you, bro. I'm talking like that. Anthony Bouquet.
Anthony, pull your pants up.
I did, but
I just wanted to have it back.
The page number is M157. It's 4.2 modeling a quadratic graph.
I am lost.
We're about to get to it.
Oh, so we're going back.
M157. It's very close to where we just were. Okay, guys, so this section says it gives you a picture of a graph, but notice how this graph doesn't have coordinates. The axes aren't labeled.
No, you need to do a code. Oh, wait. Oh, I'm sorry, I meant Courtney.
What should I eat today?
Okay, so what you have to do is analyze each graph, which we're only given one per problem, and there's 3. There's part A, B, and C. Then we have to look at each function below the graph and decide would this be a valid function, or would this be a valid equation for what this picture looks like. So this really, you have to use what you know about the forms of the quadratic equations and what characteristics you can pull from them. So what's gonna be useful for us to use here?
Hey,
Graph.
hey,
Right, the graphic organizer. So
Yeah.
maybe at this point, if you haven't ripped them out of your book, you might take them out of your book.
so we just cross out whichever one we just circle the one that we think match.
Right, so you have to look at each one, but look, this picture, there's no numbers on the graph, there's not a lot, so it's gonna be very general of whether or not it could be a matching equation. So, let's look at function number 1. What form is this written in?
Negative.
Factor.
What form?
Oh, factor.
Okay, this is in factored form, and factored form tells us the,
X-intercept.
and the,
Wow.
no, not the y.
axis of symmetry.
No, it tells us both for the X.
The A.
Factored form tells us the x-intercept and,
The A.
right, the concavity. Okay, so the concavity, if I'm looking at this equation, it tells me the concavity is gonna be,
Negative.
okay, so so far, this could be possible. What would the x-intercepts be from this equation?
Negative 1 and negative 4.
Okay, does this graph cross through somewhere on the negative x-axis?
Yes.
So could this be a possible equation for that graph?
Yes.
Okay, and then then you
knock
also
is
need to
higher.
explain why. Tell me what the concavity is. Tell me what the x-intercepts are. I know that you can just say that they're negative, because that's all this is showing here. It doesn't go through any specific numbers.
So we write in this, like, this label in there.
So if we got the Nike check, we write.
Well, I'm just putting a check. Okay, well, let's look at another one. That's why, let's look at function number.
The second
No,
one.
what I'm saying
Five.
is, like, on the paper, do we just label it? Like, which one? Like,
What do you mean?
1, 2, 3, 4,
Like,
5.
what we doing?
Middle. The
It's-
middle one.
You
Yeah, five.
whichever you want you think that's closer to it. That's closer to that graph right there.
Function number 5.
Oh,
Have you
F
read the
five.
directions?
That's what you
F
said.
5. That's what they're talking about doing.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
yeah.
was just trying to figure out.
Let's
like,
look at
like, why
number.
so many, like-
Let's look at function number 5. What?
Alright, tell
Okay,
me.
so this one's also in factored form. What's the concavity of this one gonna be?
It's gonna be
Which one?
up.
It's gonna be
Five.
positive.
Right, so could this be one that matches this
No.
graph?
No.
No, so I would just, excuse me, underneath it, I would just write that A is greater than 0, so, and I would just mark that. It can't be an equation for that graph. By putting a check, I'm just saying this could be an equation for that graph, and I'm gonna write y because A is less than 0, and then my x-intercepts,
Your head in the way, I can't see. You, so you
okay,
tell
so
them-
if it could be a possible equation for that graph, tell me why. If it can't be, tell me the feature that makes it not possible to be an equation for that graph. Does that make sense? Okay, so for each one, you have to look at what form it's written in, and then you have to know what characteristics you can identify directly from looking at that equation. So y'all go ahead and keep looking at this part A, talk with your group still. This is what we're gonna start on with tomorrow, because there's still part B and part C. Sorry.
I went through there.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
I thought I
yeah,
did
yeah.
also. Okay,
I'm gonna make a quick note when I do the eighth grade report.
okay. Did you add what you needed to this slide? Okay.
We'll know that.
What?
Look at the.
I thought you said something. Why is it? I think I just heard it. Good. Do you have any questions? Oh, also, guys, there's not a set number of equations equations that can work for this graph. It's not just one, so you have to look at each function and decide whether or not it would work. Sorry, I meant to mention it's not just one answer. And also, there may be 2 answers for number 1 and a different number of answers for number 2. So it's just you have to analyze each one. We're gonna do this tomorrow.
Can I grab everyone's attention? Please listen. Hey, this graphic organizer, I would say maybe half of us have turned it in. I will have it finished, I'll finish giving feedback on it next block. I will seek you out third block to give it back to you if you've already done it, so that you can work on the last set that is due on Tuesday, February 8th. Please don't forget that this Mathia work is due on Friday and on Tuesday. A lot of us need practice with these things, so take advantage of this. Yes, today is Thursday. You need to take a picture of this. Take a picture before you get out of here. Okay? Have a great rest of your day. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Don't play with me, bro. I'm not one of them. I said, I'm do that.
Chill.
Why you in my class, sir? With my title. Hey.
I know, I'm like, dang it. Got that music going already. Let's go.
Yeah, she playing that shit. Yeah, son.
What? Oh. Okay.